So BlackRock is now saying out loud that the war in Ukraine, the death of all these Ukrainians, is actually a great opportunity to transform Ukraine into a beacon of capitalism. Right. Goldman Sachs is excited too. Their CEO says that rebuilding Ukraine represents, quote, good economic incentives for real return and real investment. Imagine. This money is always going to be yours to rebuild Ukraine. These guys are going to get rich from it. You see how this works? So yesterday, because these people have no self-awareness whatsoever, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, went on camera to say he's thrilled about all these economic opportunities. Watch this.
It is obvious that American business can become the locomotive that will once again push forward global economic growth. We have already managed to attract attention and have cooperation with such giants of the international financial and investment world as BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. Such American brands as Starlink or Westinghouse have already become part of our Ukrainian way. Your brilliant defense systems, such as HIMARS or Bradleys, are already uniting our history of freedom with your enterprises. We are waiting for Patriots. We are looking closely at Abrams. Thousands of such examples are possible, and everyone can become a big business by working with Ukraine.
Or you can make a lot of money in Ukraine. It's the Ukrainian way, which is, of course, corruption, one of the most corrupt countries in the world. But if you're looking for a money laundering opportunity, well, it's the perfect place for you. Send us more tanks, by the way. And as by design, it was confirmed today that this country is, in fact, sending more M1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine.
This is my first video update for Wednesday morning, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's take a walk and let's discuss some of the news that is going on in the world today. That was Ukraine President Zelensky speaking at an event in Florida, some sort of commerce and trade event, something like the National Association of Commerce or something like that, which held an event in Boca Raton, Florida. That's Zelensky joining everybody via Zoom, Zoom video chat or whatever they use to broadcast Zelensky. And yeah, he was just saying the quiet parts out loud, the parts that all of us know about with regards to the conflict in Ukraine. And that is that it is very, very big business. Very big business. I mean, you have Zelensky talking about the fact that Ukraine has now gotten investment or investment commitments or partnerships with BlackRock, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. Brands like Starlink, Westinghouse are associated now with Ukraine, and pretty soon Abrams and Leopards, these types of military weapons, will also be associated with Ukraine. And so, just all the best corporations, brands, people, all of these things are now part of Ukraine's investment strategy, their business profile. Invest in Ukraine, because we have deals with Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, JP Morgan, Abrams tanks, and Elon Musk's Starlink. So give us your money. Look at all of the brands that already back us. that was pretty much Zelensky's pitch. Give us all your money, United States of America, because we're already getting all this money from all of these other guys, and just look at the names. It reminds me of like when you go to like websites that are selling services or something, and in the website in the footer they have like all the logos of all the brands that they've done business with or that they sold their products to or stuff like that. These are our customer list, and it has all these cool logos from all these big companies, and you're just like, wow, these guys, they're a serious company, because look at their customer list: Starlink, Abrams, Leopard, Westinghouse, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs. Yeah, give them your money. Give Ukraine your money, everybody. Oh yeah. Oh boy. So that was Zelensky there speaking in Florida. And of course, we have the news about the tanks. The tanks. And Olaf Scholz, he has, according to Der Spiegel, he has indeed caved, and we will indeed see Leopard 2 tanks from Germany being sent to Ukraine. We already have something like 100 plus tanks that are going to be going to Ukraine from other EU member states. Germany has given them the green light, from what I understand, to send their Leopard 2s to Ukraine. And you also have Germany now coming out with the announcement saying that they will indeed, according to Der Spiegel, send Leopard 2s to the Zelensky regime. Though we're not quite sure about the number of Leopard 2s Germany will be sending to Ukraine. According to the Der Spiegel article, I think they said that Olaf Scholz, under an immense amount of pressure, has decided to send enough tanks for a company. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and this is where I need people in the comments down below who are the military experts to correct me if I'm wrong or confirm what I'm saying, but I believe a company is the equivalent. I mean, all militaries are different, but I believe if you're talking about the US military, a company is equivalent to, I want to say 3 platoons, 3 or 4 platoons, and each platoon has, say, three tanks a platoon. So if a company is, say, let's say a company is 4 platoons at 3 to 4 tanks a platoon. So you're looking at 15 tanks, 15, 16 tanks, ballpark. I don't know, I could be wrong on my numbers, but this is according to Der Spiegel. They're saying that Scholz will send a company's worth of tanks to Ukraine. So that's the latest there. Maybe he's going to send more. Maybe he's going to send less. Maybe he's going to send a lot more. But that's Germany. We also have the announcement that the Biden White House is going to send the Abrams. And Biden's going to make this announcement on January 25th, if I remember correctly. He is going to announce that the U.S. will indeed send Abrams tanks. And this is being reported by CNN and Politico. But the time frame as to when the Biden White House will be sending the Abrams tanks is also a bit sketchy, as well as the amount of tanks that the Biden White House is going to send. I've read reports claiming anywhere between 30 to 50 Abrams tanks will be sent. Once again, maybe Biden will send less. Maybe he'll send a lot more. Who knows? But the last I read, it was between 30 and 50. And the Biden White House, according to CNN and Politico, they claim that the Biden White House will need anywhere between 6 months to like a year or two before they can get the Abrams tanks to Ukraine. Once again, maybe the Biden White House is already prepared to send the tanks to Ukraine. Maybe this number is just BS. They're just kind of saying this to distract. But that's what they're reporting. 30 to 50 Abrams, 6 months to a year and a half, 2 years. That's when the Abrams will be in Ukraine. We're going to find out. Sooner or later, we're going to find out exactly when these tanks are going to end up on the battlefield, how many of these tanks are going to end up there, and where in the battlefield are these tanks going to end up? Are they going to make it to the front lines? Or are they going to hang out in Poland and perhaps be used for something else? The Russian ambassador to the United States, he came out with a statement upon hearing that the Abrams tanks, just cross here, when he heard that the Abrams tanks are indeed going to be delivered to Zelensky, he said Let me find his quote here, if I have it. He pretty much said that the tanks are going to just get chewed up. That's what the ambassador said. The Russian ambassador, Antonov, said there is no doubt that if a decision is made to transfer M1 Abrams to Kiev, American tanks will be destroyed by our military in the same way as all other samples of NATO equipment are destroyed, the ambassador said. That's the Russian ambassador to the United States. They will get destroyed. 100 tanks, 200 tanks, 300 tanks. Whatever they send to the front line in the Donbass is going to get annihilated. And then, of course, you have the questions of who's going to be operating these tanks, and is this really going to be Ukrainian military in these tanks, or should we expect Americans or NATO forces operating these Abrams and possibly these Leopard tanks? You know, these are all valid, good questions, because if these tanks are going to get destroyed and annihilated, then you're talking about the annihilation of American troops and the annihilation of NATO troops. So I think that's a good question for citizens of the United States or citizens of NATO countries to ask, who exactly is going to be operating these tanks as they drive across Ukraine to fight the Russians. But that's the latest with the tank saga there. And why would NATO, why would the United States and the collective West, why would they send 200-300 tanks, the commanders in these countries, knowing full well that these tanks are just going to get demolished? I mean, if we know this, if the ambassador of Russia is telling them this, then I'm sure that they know this as well. They know that 200-300 tanks are not going to make a difference. So why send them? Perhaps it's because they want to buy some time. Maybe they want to extend the war a little bit more until they figure out some sort of solution or fix to the problems that they're facing in the east of Ukraine. Perhaps there are people like Baerbock or Van der Crazy that actually believe that these tanks are going to make all the difference. Ben Hodges and guys like this, who actually believe that sending these tanks are going to lead to some sort of breakthrough in the east of Ukraine, which will then lead to the Ukrainian military taking the land bridge of Crimea, which will then lead to Crimea being overrun by the Ukraine military, which will then lead to the collapse of the Putin government. I mean, there are people, neocons and Baerbock and Van der Crazy, who actually think along these lines. But you know, the real experts, they know that these tanks are just going to get chewed up. They know it. So why send them? Why are they going through all this trouble? Is this a political decision? Maybe the military officials are being completely overruled by the politicians, because the politicians in the collective West have to be seen as doing something. If they're not doing something and they're not escalating, well then, you know, they fear that they may be out of a job. So they have to appear to be escalating and doing something. So they told their military commanders, I don't care what your assessment is, just shut up, send the tanks, and that's that. That's also a possibility. Or there is the possibility that these tanks, as we discussed on the Duran the other day, these tanks are not really meant to go to the front lines in the east, but these tanks are meant to be used for some sort of operation in the west. All these tanks are going to be heading to Poland. All of this equipment heads to Poland. A lot of it also goes to Romania, but either way, all of this stuff goes right to Poland, and Poland is building a massive army. That's the way it looks like to me. If you believe all of the news that Poland is putting together 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 soldiers, that they're trading these people up, and you couple that with all of this equipment that is going to be sent. Let me go up here and cross all of this equipment that is going to be sent to Poland as well. I mean, it looks like they're building a big army right on the border with Ukraine. Throw in the Patriot systems that are being sent not to Ukraine, but to Poland. The Patriot air defense systems being sent to Poland. Throw those in there as well, and it looks like you have what could be a pretty formidable incursion force. Germany, I'm sure, is very uncomfortable with something like this, but you know, Scholz at the end of the day is a weakling. What's he going to do? What is he going to do about this? The Zelensky regime, it appears that they're removing any formidable presence of ethnic Hungarians in the west of Ukraine as well, if you believe the reports of Ukraine authorities going to the Transcarpathia region and basically snatching up any and all men in that region and sending them to Bakhmut to be annihilated. It looks like they're removing any type of perhaps they're removing any type of opposition to what could be an incursion. So they're getting those ethnic Hungarians and they're sending them to the front lines. No choice in the matter, and they're sending them like into the what the collective West has called the meat grinder. They're sending them, bam, right there. And so maybe they're dealing with the issue of many different ethnicities in the West: Hungarian, Romanian, Lviv, and the historical significance of that area to Poland. They're probably dealing with all of that. And maybe come springtime, nice house for sale, huh? Maybe come springtime, they'll have everything in place to make their move. Maybe not though. I mean, this is just speculation. Just taking a look at everything, and it's just speculation. At the end of the day, you could be looking at a political decision where these people are that dumb, and that desperate, that they do indeed decide to send the tanks, 300 tanks, 400 tanks, 500 tanks, whatever it is. They do decide to send those tanks to the Donbass, have those tanks destroyed, captured by the Russians, whatever it is, and maybe they've gained another 2-3 months in this conflict for them to move on to the next wonder weapon, which is probably something like F-16s or something like that. That's the more possible explanation to all of this. But you know, I throw it out there that all of this buildup in and around Poland could very well be about taking the west of Ukraine. Of course, it leaves the question about Odessa, which is the big prize. What happens there? Do both militaries make a mad dash towards Odessa to see who can get there first? Is the plan to keep the Russians so bogged down in the Donbass, or at least their thinking is, let's keep the Russians bogged down in the Donbass so that we can operate in the West pretty much free of any interruption, any fear of the Russians. Let's just keep them bogged down there, keep on sending military there, keep on sending guys to the front line there to keep them occupied while we deal with what we need to deal with in the west of Ukraine and perhaps Odessa. You have the troops in Russia, the Russian troops in the troops in Russia. You have the Russian troops in Belarus, 150,000 total. They're right there, right on top of Ukraine. Perhaps the Russians know all about this. That's why those troops are there, to prevent some sort of incursion. Or maybe the Russians let the incursion go through, and they let it go up until a certain line. That's the agreement. You guys can go all the way up to here, no further. Is it a NATO expansion? Yeah, it is a NATO expansion into Ukraine, but I don't see it as significant. I don't see it as something that worries Russia, because, you know, NATO kind of, it's like a little protrusion from Poland into Ukraine, but it's a protrusion which is surrounded by Belarus up top, by the Russians in the east, and depending on what happens in the south, by the Russians in the south. So you essentially have this little protrusion which is completely surrounded by Russia. So I don't think it would be of huge concern to the Russians. It's not like NATO going all the way to the borders in the east, or NATO taking Crimea. That's a whole different story. So, you know, all these questions that are popping up. But we'll find out. At the end of the day, we'll find out. I'll stay with the belief that these people are panicking and they're just trying to do anything to find a way out of this mess. They rely on the hope strategy, and they say to themselves, 300-400 tanks, that'll do it. Send them to the east and, you know, let the chips fall where they may. But just maybe, they could be preparing something else in the west of Ukraine with the Polish military, Poland, Lithuania, all of these countries kind of being set up to administer this new territory. I mean, you have a purge. So you had a purge yesterday. It turned out to be a much bigger purge than what I reported on yesterday. I mean, all kinds of people were dismissed. Of course, the excuse is corruption. Yeah, right. You're getting rid of all these officials because of corruption, and you're going to keep Zelensky in power? Come on, man. Come on, man. You're talking about corruption. Panama Papers, anybody? I mean, you know, Zelensky's like a multi-billionaire, 25 homes. But, you know, we'll keep him in power. All the other people, they're the corruption people. There's talk that the Prime Minister, Schmigel, he may also be let go. This is just rumors, but who knows? Anyway, you know, this is a clean out. They're cleaning out all of these people. After Burns visited Zelensky, after Boris Johnson visited Zelensky, all these people, they go to Kiev, they have these little secret surprise meetings, and you have this big government purge. And a purge like this, to me, is a reboot. It's a new government for a new land, a new country, a new entity. Let's put it that way, a new entity. Zelensky can't administer what's going to become this Ukraine carve-out, this new thing. He can't administer it. He's a comedian puppet actor. What does he know? You got to get rid of all his theater buddies, which is what they're doing. So they're getting rid of all of his production crew and his directors and his cameraman, all these people who were part of the Zelensky government, who were just TV people, TV and PR script writers. That was Zelensky's government. They're being cleaned out. And you're going to have to put another government in place, slowly, a government that's going to be able to administer and to deal with this new reality, with a new Ukraine. Perhaps a Ukraine that's part of Poland and Lithuania and this whole Lublin thing that they were cooking up 2 weeks ago, that they discussed 2 weeks ago when Duda and the Lithuanian president or prime minister, I forgot who, when all these people went to Lviv and they were greeted as heroes by the people in Lviv, you know, and they were talking about the Lublin Triangle. You know, you have to get a new government in place to properly administer this new idea. Perhaps that's why they're cleaning out all of these people. You know, out with the old. All these guys that were good for PR purposes. You know, they were damn good for PR purposes. They were damn good to manipulate the media. All these TV guys, they were perfect for our soft power media war against Russia. keep Zelensky in there a little bit longer because, well, you know, he's still fundraising, as you saw in the opening clip. He's still raising money, so keep him in there a little bit longer. But everybody else, let's start cleaning house and let's start putting in some government administrators, some people that actually know how to run a government, especially a new government in a new entity, a new government for a new entity. So maybe that's it as well. You had Podolyak, one of the this guy's one of Zelensky's buddies who still has a job with the Zelensky government. He's the I think he's like the spokesman or something like that. And he said this with regards to Ukraine escalation, and I quote, "I confirm officially an internal escalation of the war in Russia is inevitable, and there will be different strikes on different targets. What for, by whom, and why is another question we cannot discuss objectively today. We have a lack of public information." Once again, Ukraine is not carrying out strikes against Russia, but nevertheless, the logic of war and escalation of the war within Russia will be inevitable. Cities that are pampered, lazy, and think they live in a different reality will also be exposed. Moscow, St. Petersburg, Ekaterinburg, and others. Everything will be subject to an escalation of the war, but the escalation is Russia's internal problem. So this is Podolyak. He's the office advisor to Zelensky. That was his statement. He's predicting that the escalation will hit deep inside of Russia. I mean, he's talking about Ekaterinburg. You know, Ekaterinburg, that's deep inside of Russia. Deep north inside of Russia. But, you know, this is what he's saying. Of course, you could just say he's BSing. Perhaps this is, once again, a play to distract and to keep the Russians occupied. Keep them occupied, keep them on their toes, keep the Russians guessing so that we do what we need to do in the west of Ukraine, maybe. Or, once again, maybe this is the plan. Maybe they're hoping to get long-range missiles and to get the ATACMS in place, and the tanks will break through in Crimea, and then they'll be able to strike deep inside of Russia. Of course, threats like this from Podolyak, you know, this is just one side to the equation, because it's all well and good to say that you're going to strike at Russia, but you strike at Russia and Russia strikes back at you. You say you're going to hit Ekaterinburg, well, what's the response going to be? Podolyak seems to have forgotten what the response was when they hit the Kerch Bridge, when they had the terrorist strike against the bridge in Crimea. That's when the lights went out in Ukraine. So, you know, who knows if you can take Podolyak seriously. Once again, these guys there's some big BSers in there. TV guys. These are TV guys, so they're full of BS. But, you know, they're getting these ideas from someone. Who are they getting these ideas from? Newland, Blinken, you know, who's giving them these ideas? Sticking with Ukraine, we'll do one more story, then get to a clown world. Sticking with Ukraine, this has just kind of been like a rambling, less structured video, but sticking with the topic of Biden and Ukraine, because you can't talk about, one sec here. You can't talk about Ukraine without talking about Biden, and you can't talk about Biden without talking about Ukraine. Tucker Carlson, along with Miranda Devine from the New York Post, they had an interesting revelation, an interesting discovery, going back to the Biden, the Hunter laptop, where they said that they found, Miranda Devine said that as she was looking through the laptop, that she was thinking about all the classified documents that are popping up all over the place in different Biden properties, these classified docs. She went through the laptop, and she said that she found an email from 2014, a message, an email, a document. I don't know. I forgot what she said, but this was dating back to 2014 of Hunter Biden discussing Ukraine with Devin Archer. Like, he wrote him this message about Ukraine in 2014, and he was talking about how, and I want to, let me try to remember this because I'm kind of working off of memory. Hunter was talking about how the Russians have Crimea. They're going to work to create a land bridge. This was in, like, I think she said, Miranda Devine, I was listening to the interview between Tucker and Miranda Devine. I think she said April 2014. And the message from Hunter was about how the Russians with Crimea will then try to build a land bridge. And then the U.S. will impose sanctions on Russia because of the land bridge. And the EU may not be ready to stomach those sanctions because of their dependence on Russian energy. And this is 2014. And the message was interesting because this is Hunter Biden, crackhead Hunter. He's composing a message which read like a classified doc. That was her argument, was that he has all this information and he's talking about Russia. He's not saying Russia, he's saying RU. He's not saying Ukraine, he's saying UK. And the information that he's giving out to Devin Archer, his other buddy in Burisma, who was the roommate of Christopher Hines in university. And Christopher Hines is the stepson of John Kerry. You see how this is all connected? And all these guys were a part of Burisma in Ukraine. It's, you know, these are the kids of the political class in the United States. They were knee deep in Ukraine and Burisma, and Hunter was getting 83,000 from Burisma, and or at least he was lobbying at that point in time to get 83,000 from Burisma, and they were just talking about how the dynamics, should Russia create a land bridge to Crimea and should the U.S. impose sanctions on Russia, the EU would not be so hot on the idea of going along with sanctions because of their dependence on Russian energy. And this is 2014. 2014 is when he was talking about this. And her argument is that, how did Hunter get this information? Maybe it was from the classified documents that Joe had lying around in his Delaware home that Hunter would eventually pay $50,000 a month for in rent. Is that where Hunter was getting this information? It's an interesting discovery. It's an interesting theory from Miranda Devine at the New York Post and from Tucker Carlson, and we'll see if it proves to be true. We do know that, well, allegedly, according to ABC News and NBC News, that one of the documents, or a couple of the documents found, these classified documents, are related to Ukraine and the UK, and Miranda Devine is connecting dots. So, you know, this is this is it, you know. Joe Biden, the Biden family, the political elite in the U.S., all their kids. This is why they're so committed to Ukraine. This is why Zelensky is talking about the money angle of Ukraine and the investment angle of Ukraine. And at the end of the day, this is what it's all about for these people. This was, Ukraine for them was a windfall of untraceable cash. You know, it allowed a guy like Hunter to be making close to $1 million for doing nothing, $1 million a year for doing nothing. And that's just a low-level guy like Biden's son. Can you imagine other players and the money they were making? I mean, that was Zelensky's pitch. This is what Zelensky was talking about in my video open. You know, we don't give up on Ukraine yet because there's still a lot of money to be made here. I'm sure there's a lot of money to be made in building up the west of Ukraine. If you do end up with some sort of partition, a lot of money to be made. A never-ending military-industrial complex investment into Ukraine, if that is the end solution. Just speculation. This is just speculation. This partition stuff, but you know, who knows? it's not speculation to say this was all about the money. Anyway, let's do a quick clown world and we'll wrap this video up. Let's talk about Finland, Sweden getting into NATO. They have this big row with Turkey with regards to the vote for NATO. And the last I read, Turkey was sending the signal that, you know what, there is going to be no NATO for Sweden, not after the Quran burning, I think they had an effigy at one point of Erdogan and something like that as well. And anyway, after all of this stuff went down in Sweden, the message from Erdogan is, you know, for now, it's a no vote. Of course, this could change and they could find a way to mend things and patch things up, and Turkey could vote yes for Sweden. But the clown world is that I think it was the foreign minister of Finland. I have to see if I have this article bookmarked here. Yes, the foreign minister of Finland, he said that Finland's NATO bid does not hinge on Sweden. So Finland could join NATO with or without Sweden, which is a complete about-face. And then, like literally, I think within the same day, the foreign minister of Finland comes out again and gives a statement and says, you know what? Actually, our NATO bid relies on Sweden getting in as well. So, I mean, it's a package deal. Not a package deal? Now it is a package deal. So that's a quick cloud world to there. We'll see how this whole thing between Turkey and Sweden shakes out. But I still believe that, I don't know, let's say 60% chance that they find a way to patch things up between Turkey and Sweden, and Turkey eventually gives the yes vote. That's my hunch on it. But who knows? Who knows what's going on there? Turkey has been targeted by Bolton for regime change, so that's a whole nother video there. Anyway, that is my morning video, the Duran.locals.com. Look for us on Rockfin as well. Cross here. And the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. And we are on all the major video platforms, including Telegram and Rumble, BitChute, ODYSEE, my channel, Alexander's channel, the Duran's channel. And if you like this video, think about subscribing. Maybe hit me a like. And if you don't like this video, don't hit me a like and don't subscribe. All right, everybody. Take care.